Anyway, this is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Simon Slater. We are scattered around all parts of the globe at the moment,
yes,
and having a good time.
I'm having a good time. Plate's a little full these days, but just chipping away at it, trying to get things done. And sometimes that's what happens. So I'm glad we can coordinate all of our busy schedules to keep this going.
Absolutely. And I've got a few stories, and I mean, I hate to take the meat out of your mouth, Tim, but in a matter of speaking, but I do have a few stories that you probably would have been happy to tell, but I'm going to beat you to the punch. You know, we've mentioned them a few times before in the past.
Sure.
The cocaine hippos.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
one of my favorite subjects. Yes.
We love the story of the, Pablo Escobar, a man of great excess, to say the least, and horrible crimes, to say the absolute least. He imported a lot of diverse kind of animals, not indigenous to Colombia at all, and especially hippos, which are now, they're called the cocaine hippos. There are now more than 80 hippos left.
Oh, yeah.
And Colombia has finally sterilized 24 of them. See, the problem is they are an invasive species. He brought them to Colombia sometime before 1993.
Yep.
And they've multiplied. And as we all know, I mean, it can't be that easy to sterilize a hippo. Now, one of the problems is they weigh more than 3,000 pounds.
So also the most dangerous land animal on the planet.
And they can cause more damage just because how big they are environmentally by moving around.
Those I can go. I keep on going because I want to say a lot about hippos also.
Well, I mean, I if anybody would know what a group of hippos is called, it would be you, Tim. And it makes absolute sense. And if you don't know,
I actually don't know this. Please,
a bloat, a bloat of hippos, which makes so much sense. And they're in the Magdalena River. So, I mean, experts say they might have some positive environmental effects, but they've yet to figure out exactly what that is.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I was blown away to find out hippos can't swim. They
float.
Well, they kind of like launch themselves up to like breathe, and they kind of bounce around, but they're basically just solid mass, and they run on the floor of these rivers, and they kind of bounce up. But they're just like a giant stone. They just sink right to the fucking bottom. Each tooth is like a samurai sword. It's like
guillotine.
These things are insane. Can they run like 30 miles an hour? I mean, they're really insane. It's
faster than me on a bad day, I have to say it.
When Retrovirus played in Mexico City, and I was like, well, I want to go and do some solo shows in Colombia, and it's only $100 more just to kind of add Colombia to my little Latin American
sojourn
musical. Yeah, exactly. And so the promoter in Medellin, as they say, the locals call it, for whatever fucking reason, because I guess hippos came up, and I forgot that they were there. And I was talking about hippos, and they're like, whoa, brother. We have a big problem with hippos right here. And then sure enough, the next day he sent me a link to one of the suburbs of Medellin, where just one of these hippos just comes storming through the downtown area, and everyone's like, and nothing's going to really stop the fucking thing.
I mean, it is a truck of flesh. Now, I mean, to go from the ridiculous to the sublime, I'm again putting an animal story into your mouth. Italian police found a cache of 235 frozen mice-like dormouse rodents, which are a protected species in Italy, several more in cages being fattened up for slaughter in a drug raid in Calabria. Now, these furry creatures are a favorite of the 'Ndrangheta crime group, whose members believe eating them during important meetings will bring added wisdom. They also offer the delicacy to make peace among warring clansmen. These dormice were widely consumed in ancient Rome, often stuffed with ground pork and pine nuts. I don't know how many pine nuts you can get into one of these little fritters, maybe 5 or 6. But police also confiscated nearly 700 cannabis plants during the raid. So I guess that was a good day in Calabria.
Yeah, but Calabria is also kind of running the heroin trade. Just weed is what they're celebrating. God, yeah. If you played in like Reggio, have you played in Calabria before?
I've played all over Italy, and I'll be going back there in just a couple of weeks. Now,
I mean, down there is last time I was there, actually, the promoter, Chuck, that's pretty cool. He's like, well, we're gonna make dinner for you. He went snorkeling in the Gulf of Calabria like hours before our meal, like during our sound check or something, and he came back with a couple octopuses, which, by the way, is the which is the proper plural for octopuses. No,
octopuses.
Octopuses, and we had right out of the sea fresh grilled octopus that evening.
Of all the things you can put in your mouth, there's something that is better. This is rather disturbing to me. Now, I don't like sandwiches. Now I really don't like sandwiches after seeing this horrifying video, which shows his name is Jumani, a worker at Subway restaurant in Providence, which we were just at.
Yeah, already this story is going to be discussed.
Okay, all right. So Subway worker Jumani in Providence. This is another reason I don't eat sandwiches. He was dumb enough to post a video of him putting sandwich ingredients on the bathroom floor and toilet, recording himself walking across tubs of food and then putting them back, and presumably to be used in customer sandwiches, drinking from Gatorade bottles, putting them back. And he admitted he did this because he was trying to draw attention to his films and music. He said, I just reached a point where I decided I'd be willing to take a higher risk for a higher reward. Well, he made a series of 30 horrifying videos. And there's one picture of literally the cold cuts lined up around the toilet seat.
Yikes. I mean, justifiably, Subway can't get a break because that shit's disgusting. But between Jared, the child porn molester guy, and then he was their spokes guy. Do you remember that?
Right.
Video?
Yes, I do.
And I remember after he finally was busted by the FBI, like all these Subway, these people had like razor blades scraping off these like life-size decals of Jared on their windows. But basically after that, and then of course they're such con artists. Their whole marketing campaign was, we bake our bread daily. And it's like, well, that's not even bread, as it was proven to be like one of the main ingredients was like rubber cement.
Well, not to mention the tuna controversy, but anyway.
Tuna. It's just everything's always sucked.
I think I sent you the link, and I can say no more because the picture is so disturbing. But
well, I'm going to connect to this thread with disgruntled employees working minimum wage.
Good one, please.
Right now, there's a Target, department store, wherever the category that shit is. Target is the people.
Yeah, right. As they pretend.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a bunch of employees working at a Target in Michigan that are furious because, right now the post-pandemic, like kind of union labor is kind of coming back a little bit. Like, hey, wait, we're working these shitty jobs, being paid nothing. We've got unemployment. Like, I don't want to go back to that crap. So they're and as Congress is talking about raising minimum wage, just kind of in the air, as it should be. But so this one Target went on strike, and we all want to raise, and then they came back, and the raise was like, well, we're going to give you $2 more an hour just during the holiday season. So of course, all the people were like, this sucks. But this is why they're really pissed off. Just when that announcement was passed around, it was accompanied by fortune cookies. But every fortune, but the fortunes were mocking them. So they're furious. It was like, one was like, I see money in your future, and it's not yours.
Oh my God.
The fortune you seek is in another cookie, things like that. And basically they're just being mocked. And then one person who was just like, there was not one positive uplifting message in any of them. Of course, it just, it goes to show.
Where did you talk about fortune cookies? Because actually I was at a Chinese restaurant last night in Graz, and I did get a fortune cookie, and this is what it said: your prospects are the best. Accept it. Now, I got no problem accepting the best.
Whoa.
I know. It's a good one. Now, Tim, you and I, we occasionally like to have a little drink every now and then. And I've been reading this article that if you're tired of constantly turning to alcohol, not really, but while socializing, there is an alternative. Euphoric beverages like those from Kin, non-alcoholic drinks that can enhance your mood without getting you drunk and socially lubricate without giving you a hangover. Now, I don't know, I haven't tried this, but the flavor of Kin Lightwave, it's called, combines lavender, vanilla, birch, smoked sea salts into a refreshing and tasty rainbow. But the flavor is not the only reason to enjoy it. Supposedly, its euphoric properties come from a certain types of mushrooms, saffron, tryptophan.
Okay.
And of course, while responses differ, it supposedly gives you a sense of calm, clearer thinking, better social connections, and again, no hangover. So now that sounds good. And also, I mean, the passion flower and the mushrooms are adaptogens that boost your adrenal system, give your body more balance, healthy stress responses. I know this stuff sounds pretty interesting here, and it's supposed to smell and taste good, but just in case that doesn't really float your boat, I also read an article back to back with that said, and I know you're into this, can you microdose alcohol?
Well,
I mean, you're not into microdosing alcohol, but we've been known to
well, there is a curve with alcohol tolerance.
Is a curve.
And so isn't that relative to how much your tolerance goes up? Like, ultimately, can you reach a point where like 5 shots is a microdose for you? I mean,
well, let's put it this way. Hannibal, the series with Mads Mikkelsen, which was my all-time favorite, binge watch of all times. I saw a film that he did recently, and it was about a band of friends. They're, teachers. And I mean, Mads is just so sexy and great. But anyway, this group of teachers decides they're going to start microdosing small amounts of alcohol during working hours. Well, of course, it doesn't go very well. And but then, you got to look at this kind of historically. I mean, for instance, not that I want to follow in the footsteps of Churchill, but he'd start the day with a whiskey, a water, and with a few glasses of scotch, champagne, a highball. Some people can just handle their liquor.
Well, Stravinsky woke up with a full glass of scotch.
Well, we know that writers are notorious drinkers, if not drunkards.
Well, Stravinsky being a composer, but I mean, you'd work like 14-hour days. One of my regular speeches is, the Vikings were conquering on alcohol. I mean, you're in the middle of that fucking Atlantic or Arctic Sea, and there's no drinking water. You're drinking alcohol, and so some people can just do their job drunk.
You've heard me say it before. I am akin to the Antichrist. I can turn wine into water any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's not there's for a lot of litigious reasons, and of course, I'm not there condoning people go operate heavy machinery or necessarily raise their family wasted from the second they wake up. But
look, it's all.
But you're also lying. You're also lying to say that some people just kind of can't sort of pull it off. I mean, it's a dangerous line to walk, of course.
Well, I think what's far more fucking dangerous is that this has just been revealed by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I thought there were 19,000 sites in the U.S., but there are 120,000 U.S. sites feared to handle harmful PFAS or forever chemicals. So the Environmental Protection Agency has identified more than 120,000 locations around the U.S., which means basically anywhere you live, you're going to be exposed to it. I've been talking about this shit for years. A class of toxic forever chemicals associated with, of course, cancer, other health problems. Yay. And it's a frightening tally 4 times larger than previously reported. I mean, so the list of facilities makes it clear that virtually no part of America appears free from the potential risk of course, air, water contamination with, polyfluoroalkylide substances. And Colorado tops the EPA list with an estimated 21,400 facilities, followed by California, only 13,000, Oklahoma, 12,000. And these are facilities and industries that may be handling this. Obviously, look, it's just absolutely terrifying. So I'm looking at a map now, and it really looks like you just took a BB gun and shot the entire country with buckshot, resulting in bloodstains over the entire map. And the only place that looks like it might not have that much could be
Hold on, let me guess.
Kansas.
You didn't give me. Actually, I wouldn't have thought Kansas. I mean, because it's like kind of around Oklahoma. I saw it was basically like these government decides like, oh, no one's gonna live around here, kind of like just kind of waste zones, so they're like just dump it off over here.
It's, I mean, look, I've written about this. I've talked about it. I've been horrified. Look, I've lived in. I actually designed unconsciously a pentagram of the most toxic cities to live in America. I'm surprised I'm still alive, but there we go. And this article just came out in the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's. I read it in The Guardian. Put it this way.
Well, so speaking of misleading and it's basically not really covering up truths about these things, and Colin Powell had died, and they're all trying to do this thing like I don't know, this guy served or some shit like that. You have to respect him. He fucking lied on the UN. What do you got there with you?
I'm showing a black burned heart-shaped chestnut because that's how much I give a shit about a dead liar.
Fair enough. Well, he's in the history books. Well, first of all, his name is spelled Colin, but he insists being called Colin. I never understood that one.
Maybe because he was full of shit.
Well, kind of. I mean, so he sucks no matter what. I mean, Secretary of State. So either he claims he was given false information, misleading information to justify invading Iraq under GW, or if that's the case, how come he's fucking so ignorant? Like that means he's not good at his fucking job, or he just was fully on fucking lying in order to push this shit through. I mean, either way, it brings me up to my next story, and this is terrifying. He was pressured and he's weak. All pathetic.
Well, I don't know who was pressuring these cats, but according to the FBI, right now, there might be up to 4,000 unidentified serial killers in the United States.
I believe it.
No wonder why I'm a forensic fanatic. With as many as 50, only 50 active at any given time. Now, I just saw a report that said right now in America, there are 91,000 missing men, women, and children.
91,000? Wow.
91,000.
That's a lot.
I mean, all right, if there's 4,000 possible serial killers, that's more than 100 in each state, right? It's about 100 in each state.
Per average. I don't think it would be evenly distributed, but sure.
Of course it wouldn't, but how about the 91,000 missing? I don't even know nobody knows where they are or where they're from. And that's by their estimate, meaning you can double that number.
I would guess that's majority are just like byproducts of drug addiction, or they want to get off the grid, runaways. I don't think.
Excuse me.
I would think murder, I don't know if it'd be the high of that. But
there's an awful lot of snatching going on. Now, the 1970s and 80s are actually remembered as the so-called golden age of serial murder. And the FBI said that they've actually plummeted by about 85% in the decade since. Okay, but there's still 4,000 possible killers out there. And
I would guess it plummeted because the biggest population was the baby boomers, and basically sex drive and the murders, it's kind of parallel as the boner goes down, because most of it's men, so does the urge to kill goes down. So that would be my hypothesis.
The FBI has gathered records on more than 800,000 murders carried out in the US since 1976. And they think that, they don't even know how many of these are possibly by serial killers. So the guy that wrote this review, Hargrove, he's attributed the issue to something called linkage blindness, which is a failure of law enforcement to communicate or share information in a way that connects, of course, unsolved crimes. Now, there still is not a centralized database for all the police departments across the country to report murders, which I just can't even believe it. Like, there is a database for DNA, but not for them to report murders, nor a complete master list of all the unsolved killings. Because, they could be just cold case files. They let them go. They're still working on them.
But meanwhile, the DEA has a nationalized database for drug traffickers. It seems a little backwards, but
yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, the guy that came to this conclusion of 3,000 to 4,000 serial killers, Michael Arndt, he's authored 12 books on serial murder. So he says that he thinks for sure close to 3,000 to 4,000. I mean, that's a wide fucking range. And of course, why aren't most serial killers being caught? And that's because, killers study the mistakes of others, knowing how to dupe police, constraint resources of law enforcement, lack of training, growing social isolation, which can make some victims, of course, prostitutes, street kids, women walking home alone at night more vulnerable, and enhanced geographic mobility. Okay, of course. But even with the DNA at the incredible amount of technology we have about that, it's still down to the stupidity of the cops in general not being able to put this all together.
A lot of them turn out to be cops at some point in their careers and their lives, and they know a lot of the holes in the system. I wonder, obviously the thrill of murder for these people, I wonder how many people the actual thrill is literally, quote unquote, getting away with murder, is basically pulling the wool over the eyes of the system.
Well, also what this article says is that, the typical victim of murder used to be white. Now the majority are Black, which is interesting.
Well, that means
also, I mean, there are just so many kinds of murder that are more difficult to solve. Stranger on stranger crimes, drug or gang-related killings, as opposed to, domestic violence, murder in the family. So, I mean,
statistically, if it's going up, if serial killing is going up in the African-American community, according to
it's being less investigated.
Well, there's that, but also according to a lot of FBI profiling on trying to hunt down serial killers, it usually means there's going to be more Black serial killers. You can get away with it when you can kind of blend with the crowd. So you don't see a Black guy going into white suburbia and getting away with being a serial killer. You're like, hey, it's that guy. And it's the same. It's the same with all the demographics. It's basically someone who can blend in and not be noticed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, of course, I mean, it's obvious which states have the highest. I mean, California, number 1, Texas, number 2, Florida, number 3. How about this? Illinois.
Well, it has a long history.
And then, of course, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Washington, Michigan, Georgia. I mean, a lot of dumping grounds in all of these places.
Well, sure. But strangely, a lot of the famous ones were from Wisconsin. It's Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer. It's like,
all right. Well, I mean,
I have one. Oh, keep on going.
No, I'm going to close this up because the thing is we have serial killers, and then we just have, the previous report I mentioned that we have. What was it? 210? Was it 120,000 or 210,000 serial killing sites put upon us by corporations who are killing us one at a time or in mass? So either way, it's a death trip. You got to have as much fun as you can. I don't know what else to say. Give me something good to go out, Timothy Doll. That's all I know.
I'm just rooting. Well, I guess I'm rooting for hippos. I mean, I know they're dangerous. You don't really want them in your neighborhood. Here's one. If you want to fetishize hippos a little bit, and from a distance,
only if you insist.
Check out. There's a feeding in I think it's in Tokyo, some zoo in Japan.
No.
They gather people around for feeding out for hippos, and they feed them whole watermelons.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they just open their mouths, and the thing's just like smush. I mean, it's
like
kind
a
of like
jujube. It's
you
like
can't
a
stop. You
jujube.
can't stop looking at it. It's like, and everyone's gathering and cheering. But that's kind of a fun thing to check out. Is hippos eating.
I do
watermelon.
enjoy that, and it is like just chomping on a jujube to someone like you or me. Anyway, just to get the numbers straight, 120,000 permanently toxic sites in America. So
Yikes.
this is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and our special guest, serial painter Tim Biskup, a man obsessed with creating as opposed to destroying, a man who's got storage spaces filled with paintings he's stalked into existence, and a rather cute and gregarious guy, Tim Biskup, the Lydia and Spin. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Tim Biskup, who is an incredible, I don't even know how to describe psychedelic. I'm going to say psychedelic. I'm not, that's not even really, it brings about a psychedelic feel in your artwork. And it's in, I'm going to house it in the fact that so much great art came out in quote unquote the lowbrow style. Thank you, Juxtapose. Also, magazine founded by Robert Williams of Los Angeles, starting, I guess, in the mid 80s, 90s. When was the real quote unquote lowbrow movement begun, as far as you're concerned, Tim?
I would say mid 80s. I was in art school in the mid 80s, and it was looking a lot more interesting than the things going on. So
who were some of your right? Who are some of your favorite artists from that period? I mean, it was a really ripe period. We had Robert Williams on this show, and adore him as I do.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Robert was maybe the first one. I walked into La Luz de Jesus, and was like, there's a poodle with a gun up his ass and his guts sprayed out on the sidewalk, and I was like, okay. And it was immaculately painted, so I was like, okay, I like this.
I'm home.
Yeah, much more interesting than the stack of bricks that my art teachers were raving about. You
mean the stack of shit? But we had Billy of La Luz de Jesus on here. I mean, that period, which was so connected to music and art in LA at that point, was really vibrant. And it seems as if now, here we jump cut to right now, and we'll go back in time as well, that you started actually hosting your own art shows or events, because DIM, do it myself. It's what we have to do at a certain point.
Yep, totally. I mean, I grew up putting out my own records and things like that. And so when I kind of, felt like I was ready to start putting my art out there, I actually went and showed it to Billy, and Billy
at
said,
La Luz de Jesus.
Yeah. And Billy said, looks like Shag. I don't know if you know Shag's work, but
I know Shag and the Piz, and I mean, the thing is, I think that a lot of that art, look alike or not, the thing is it has an energy that really pops off the canvas. I mean, it's a very lively time of art. Please carry on.
Yeah. And so Josh and I met later on, and Shag, and realized we were looking at a lot of the same inspiration and everything. But so I walked away from meeting Billy, and I was like, maybe I don't need a gallery. I'll just do this myself. And maybe the only gallery that would show me had rejected me a little bit, So
that's why I never had a record company except my own. I mean, basically, I mean, I've had one record company like in 79, and then just DIY, get off my tip. Right.
Yep.
we come out of kind of the same ideas of what helped to promote us to create and do it ourselves. And also, you were very inspired by music. You were doing music as a kid with your brother.
Yeah. I mean, I started out playing in punk rock bands, and kind of, got recording equipment and started screwing around with that. And my younger brother, who was still in high school, just fucking blew my mind with the music he was making, and He
Where were
he
you
found
living
a-
at the where were you living at the time? And what years are these that you started with the music thing?
we were in Clovis.
Which I want to
way-
call COVID. But yeah, I
Yeah,
know Clovis.
you could probably call it that accurately. I would guess right now.
Cloven, California. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, when I was like 9 years old, my parents moved us from Woodland Hills, which was, it was the valley, but it was close to LA and the beach and everything, which I loved. And then a car drove into our house, and my mom was like, "Okay, we're moving to the country now." And we moved to the country, and it was not just like a podunk town. It was like 5 miles outside of a podunk town,
Well, okay. Was it like Okies? Or, who's living there? Is it like?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
for
okay.
sure.
Okay.
4-H
Oh.
club was all the rage. Yeah.
And even at 9, you knew this sucks. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no
Yeah.
culture here. What the fuck am I?
I mean, at 9, were you already on the way to becoming the weirdo that you fortunately are today?
I remember distinctly my mom reading Time magazine, and there was some article about the punk rock, and she mentioned the name Throbbing Gristle and the Germs, and I was just like, oh yeah, there's something there that I like. It was terrifying, but I was like, I gotta
Throbbing Gristle
see
and the
what that's
Germs were name dropped in Time magazine.
The same article?
probably like late 70s.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider Throbbing Gristle punk, but
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
what does Time magazine know? But a 9-year-old's mind was excited.
I think the article might have been about like really gross parts of the kind of alternative music world that were happening, and
Yeah. That's when conservatives were censoring art. Now it's actually liberals. I don't know what's going on now.
great.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Not really, but Tim, so you said we met because I do remember we met in Spain somewhere, and you were saying before that we met and we're on a TV show together. Yeah, remind me, where were we? What were we doing?
I had a gallery show, and in order to promote the show, they put me on this TV show to get interviewed. And there was a special musical guest happening, and they said it's Lydia Lunch, and I was like, oh, just fully starstruck. I was just like, oh shit. And so we were just sitting in the green room chit chatting, and then you went out and read a piece, and there was
So I did a spoken word piece. It wasn't really music.
Yeah.
Was this put on by my friend Mario from Contemporanea Art by any chance? Do you remember what city it was in?
Barcelona.
Okay, which is where I lived for a while. So yeah. Did you do a lot of time tramping around Europe? Is your art more popular there? I mean, most artists, if you go to Europe, your art is more popular there than it is here.
Yeah, all over Europe. I mean, I think from like 2003-ish till 2009, 10, something like that. I was all over that place. Yeah. And Japan.
What were you doing? Were you just doing exhibitions, invited to exhibitions, putting them on, tramping around? What were you doing?
All of that. Mostly my own work in other people's galleries, but then there would be like, a music festival. I'd do a poster for a band, or, DJ at some place. Or I got to know Barry and Deborah from All Tomorrow's Parties really well. And actually, that's the second time you and I met. Is we had dinner, you, me, Thurston Moore, Barry and Deborah, and who's the guy from the Tall Furs?
Tall Furs. I don't even know.
Tall Furs.
Don't even know who that is. Well, I mean, I did appear at All Tomorrow's Parties more than anybody, but that's the only festival that would ever have me. So I guess that's not really a great claim to fame, but it was.
Well, that was
the
Teenage
festival.
Jesus and the Jerks.
Oh, you must have been
thing.
Very excited.
I was very excited.
Well, actually, it was Buzz of the Melvins and Mike Patton who insisted on Teenage Jesus. And it's weird because we just interviewed Trevor Dunn, who's played with Mr. Bungle forever the other day. I didn't bring that up then, but and we've had, it's also, we always talk about how connected everything is. It's not as if we know everybody on the planet, but, everybody is in our circle of creativity, whether it's music, art, photography or films. There is a tribe and it still exists and we're still connecting and we're still doing stuff because we can't stop.
Absolutely.
Can't stop.
And I got to say, you've had a huge effect on me from
Wait, what?
Yeah. But I specifically 1313 hit me at a point in my life that was like, I needed it,
With Retrovirus, my band I have with Tim Dahl, Weasel, Walter, and Bob Burt, we do quite a few 1313 songs, and we will be in LA November 28th at the Palazzo, and I hope to see you there.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. That sounds good.
That's very interesting to me. I never say, you probably do. I don't know who knows anything about whatever.
Yeah.
Whenever, when it came to anybody, I don't have a clue. So you're tramping around. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning. So punk rock, skateboarding, doing wackadoodle music. Did you play a lot? How old were you when you were doing the music? And were you doing that out of COVID, California?
Yeah. Well, I had somebody left a drum set in my garage. I had an older brother and some friend of his left a drum set in there, and I would just go in there and bang on it. And we had a skateboard ramp, and one of these skaters showed up one day to skate our ramp and sat down at the drum set. And he was the drummer for a band called Capital Punishment in Fresno, and he beat the shit out of those drums in a way that I was not familiar with. And it was like Keith Moon showing up at my house, and I looked at those drums after he left, like he was my, they were my girlfriend that he had just made sweet love to, and I was like, oh, but I practiced, and then I got in a band called the Vicious Bunnies with this amazing guy named Fat Jerry, who is like the town freak, and we became really good friends, and we went to go see shows. We went down to the Roxy and saw you and Mr. Fetus.
The Roxy on Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't even know what we were doing there. Was it a Stinkfist show where I have no idea.
No, it was him with the pig heads.
Oh and, the best of the best is Thurwell with pig heads.
It's real so smelly
good.
In there.
It was so good. And I was just doing spoken word probably.
Yes, yeah. And the
terrifying
and the Richard Kern film.
Terrifying
Fingered.
enough.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It was all terrifying. It was great.
That was shown in the same show?
We toured that.
Yeah. That was solid. But I gotta say, the first thing that I ever heard from you was that tape that
Thurston
with you and Michael, on the other side.
Oh, it's terrifying. It's a cassette recording of like bedroom sickness that Thurston put out. Well, I didn't realize, Tim, you've been stalking me all this time. I knew there was somebody sniffing around. I didn't know it was you. What's interesting is obviously I'm glad my music did not influence your art, because actually your art is rather ecstatic. I don't want to call it happy, but it's buoyant somehow. It does give you a good psychedelic feeling to look at that stuff.
That's good. I'm glad you feel that way. I think like art school was, it was all about being taken seriously and being clinical and, knowing what you're talking about and everything. And I just fled from that. I never heard a teacher mention the word fun or joy or happiness or anything. And I was just like, man, fuck this. This is awful. And I actually stopped making art and just made music, visual art. I just felt like, well, I can't do that. I can't do what those people are asking me to do. I'm just going to make music. And then I saw, Ren and Stimpy and Juxtapose and Kenny Scharf and Keith Haring and all that stuff that was all kind of like flooding into my world. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. Like that sounds fun. And
and that's an interesting take, especially somebody coming out of, as a 9-year-old throbbing gristle and germs. I want to go see what that is, because you know, because even though your influences might have been, some of them might have been darker musically, your art was, again, it's more kind of just fun. It is fun.
I would say the music I was checking out, the music is kind of fun too. I mean, and it's at least how do you interpret these things? But it's playful, especially it's you know, it's kind of idiomatic in terms of just the collages that are being made. It's experimental, but it's not. It's you know, it's still touching on idioms that are popular references and all these things. So I see a parallel there actually.
I think the, you know, the music that I was listening to and the, you know, was putting me in touch with the core of my being. You know, that's what punk rock was. It was like, you know, ripping you apart and kind of like making you show your true colors. And so, you know, hearing you talk about sex the way you did, and molestation and life, all these fucking gruesome parts of life, you know, it was like, okay, well, I needed to think about that stuff. That stuff came up in all the music and the art that I was looking at, and helped me get to the parts of myself that were kind of buried underneath the pain and sadness and all that other shit. And as that emerged, I got, you know, my work got more and more joyful. And so when I started really getting training as an artist, which happened by working in animation and doing skateboards and things like that, what came out was more exuberant and joyful than pain and, you know, anger.
Well, that is a really great thing that you just said, because look, in my art, I have to be the town crier. I have to discuss these subjects that, you know, especially when I first started, that nobody else was. But anybody that knows me or has met me, you know me, Tim Doll knows me. I basically am pretty fucking funny. I am really positive because I know the end is near and I can't fucking wait. I love it. I love being alive. But what I have to, you know, and I have to divide my day kind of into, look, I need all the statistics. I need all the news. I need to know all the terrible fucking bullshit. I don't know why I do, but I need to, as the filter, as the liver of America. Night rolls around. I'm a freaking party girl. Watch out, motherfucker. And that's just my part of my multiplicity. I wouldn't even call it my duplicity. But I mean, it is important. And it's because I dug through all the fucking shit to get to the core, which is, to me, the real rebellion is pleasure. However you find it, or however you take it, or whatever you give back in that form.
So, Tim, do you have a duplicity? I mean, is that, with all this joy in your art, are you like a dark individual at late night when everyone else is partying? You're like, I'm going out with a knife tonight. Yeah. I'm gonna really take on.
I go through phases.
Side. Oh, yeah. You do? Okay.
I mean,
he's getting itchy just talk. Wait, he's getting itchy just thinking about it. He looks like the people I watch before I go to sleep at night in my forensic fantasies.
Whoa. Ooh. Oh boy. Oh.
He's getting hot under the collar. Oh my God.
Whoa,
show him.
Who's stalking who?
Were there any in what's your name of the town again?
Clovis.
Clovis. And Clovis, were there any kind of serial killers in the periphery of that town when you were growing up?
Other than yourself?
Oh, yeah.
There were,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There were some freaks for sure.
It's California. They're everywhere.
Of course. I want to hear the details.
No, it's just out in the country. You know, you had to be careful where you relaxed. You know, it was just, there were.
No, I was saying California rednecks might be the scariest ones in America. I mean, people don't, you know, for people that don't live in California or haven't been there, a lot of people don't realize, you know, once you get out of those cities, it's insane Okies and.
Well, there's a lot of terrain in which to dump bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And also the hypocrisy of what California stands for, like, oh, it's wonderful all the time, oh, la la la. But the reality is, I mean, there's a lot of desperation, there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of sadness and misery, and that's gonna turn some people into maniacs or artists.
You found artists. Well, you found the art freaks who maybe crossed over into other types of freaks.
Yeah.
Were there people that you were avoiding, like you would see kind of around town, be like, I don't know, this well, you know, this town.
I mean, most of the people I avoid are the kind of like real art world people, honestly.
Nice answer.
And that, you know, when you mentioned kind of my, you know, my dark, duplicitous dark side, you know, I in like not 90, in like 2008, I wrote this book to like accompany a show that I did in New York that was basically just me railing angrily against the art world and you know, in the most vulgar ways.
I want this book. I want this
Yeah.
book. I want
Yeah.
this
So,
book.
so Tim, do you think if you know, because it's so insane about who makes it in the art world? Of course, there are brilliant people that do, but still, you know, some people are just like they get
Or
that
the music
they
world.
get that one gallery, and the next thing they know, they're selling paintings for $1 gazillion.
Yeah.
If you had won that lottery, would you be as angry towards the elite art world?
Oh no, I would be thrilled. I'd be rich. I probably would be on a yacht right now.
Going back to what Lydia just said,
I'd gladly bring you a cocktail.
but honestly, going back to what Lydia said, if you take, I have to say it might be more fucked up in the music, because if you take the 10 richest living musicians and the 10 richest living artists, now there's some people like the guy who did the mural at Google that's one of the 10 richest, but you have like, you know, some really brilliant motherfuckers. 10 richest musicians is just like lowest common denominator. So, you know, it's like Don Henley and people like that, you know.
Tim, if you suddenly struck the lottery, other than asking me for a date on a yacht where I could serve you a cocktail, what would you even fucking do with all that money? I mean, I know what I would do. I'd be passing out hundos like it was cotton candy, you know. I'd be like, here, have a couple of Thawi. And it's nothing.
That's true. I mean, I think that that's the perspective that I have been working towards. You know, I mean, when I was in art school and they were telling me the things that I should do, I didn't understand that really. That's all in order to satisfy the marketplace and make it easier for them to sell your art for lots of money. And so if you follow the guidelines that art school tells you to go down, at least in the 80s, it'll lead you towards being a pawn for galleries and repeating yourself over and over again and creating something that brands you as that thing. And it denies you of being an artist. You know, it really takes away the part of you that is flexible and going, oh, what's that over there? I'm going to fuck with that now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And, you know, being a schizophrenic weirdo.
Are there any living artists who are superstars right now that you actually do really like?
Gerhard Richter. Yeah, because he says all of this and he's a part of that system, but he talks about it in a way that he clearly doesn't give a shit about, you know, trying to be taken seriously. He's taken seriously because he takes himself seriously. And I take myself seriously now that I've figured out that that's all I really need, you know.
And what about the superstars? Are there any ones you really don't like?
All of them.
I don't know. I'll throw some out. Coons. What do you think of?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, I
preferred his wife.
Yeah. I think the audacity of Jeff Koons is really attractive to me.
Okay.
You know, Basquiat, I can't stand.
Okay.
You know, well, I think he's a real artist. I just think he's not very good, you know.
Okay.
I would prefer in that vein, actually, kind of in that vein, was Manuel Ocampa, but you know. Mark Kostabi, I like some of his art, but other people did it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of incredible work out there that I like in theory that I just can't stand.
Well, visually. Sure, because if you're dedicating your life to ultimately aesthetic on many levels, you have to know what you like and don't like. In fact, what you don't like is more important to help shape what you actually are.
You know what's I don't think it's so weird, but I really like it. I think he might be a friend of yours, or it's the same period. I really love the art of Mark Ryden. I mean, it's so creepy, fairy tale, cute. It's the childhood a lot of us didn't have, and some of us did have, hiding in the cubby as a 6-year-old from creepy things. I really like Mark Ryden. I mean, you know, little girls holding big chunks of meat. I mean, I find his art kind of irresistibly.
Do you consider Gunter von Hagen an artist?
Oh,
I don't know who that is.
The guy that did,
Body
the
Worlds.
the body things, those okay.
Tim,
Body Works.
Tim and Tim. He's the guy. He's the guy that actually Damien Hirst ripped off because he slices Gunter von Hagen, took corpses and sliced some of them into thin
organs,
plasticine. And also,
Ooh.
my favorite piece of art that he did was called The Lovers, and it's just the arteries in two heads, the red arteries hugging
that
each
thing.
other. And to me, it's like, ooh, if you could only find where the migraine comes from. Gunter von Hagen, fantastic. Body Worlds, you must. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Oh,
No, I know what you're
that-
talking about.
Yeah,
now,
it's like, is this creepy? Is this cool? Or what's even going on? When
I
when I first saw it, I saw it in Chicago in
I adore it.
the Science Museum. It wasn't even in the art museum. So it
Well,
was-
I'm a bacterial and an interior freak. There used to be the Operation Channel. I like that shit, having had many of my own. I really like the inside of the body, like the outside too, but I really do like organs, blood vessels, bacteria, viruses, and all those other bones. All that
What do you
kind
think of
shit.
Robert? What do you think of Robert Crumb?
I love Robert Crumb.
Okay,
It's amazing.
All right, yeah.
I mean, talk about a guy who's willing to expose his deepest kind of,
totally.
visceral, self-immolating.
Although
know.
I heard he kind of like had a tone. He toned it down during the Me Too. He was like a little inside information. He was a little like,
Well, he
where's this
lives in
going?
some small village in
He lives
France.
in
I don't know how
France, so
much
you
extra
can, yeah,
he's
exactly.
gonna
You
get.
can do that in France. Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I mean, your next pair of glasses could be more crummish there.
Ooh,
Tim
yeah. I don't know.
Biskup. I mean, look, honey, you like we're creepy enough.
Yeah, right.
We're fucking creeps. Just,
Did you
Well,
watch a lot of? Go
ahead.
No,
I'm
go
just gonna say, bring up Mark Ryden. I mean, he's one of the guys that to me was like, I zoned in on him pretty quickly as soon as he emerged, and we became really close friends very quickly, and we've traded work for years. And I mean, had talked about all the things that you can imagine we would talk about, and kind of helped each other wrap our heads around, being a part of the normal world and wanting to make this bizarre stuff that we make, and it's great.
well,
I mean,
people don't realize how actually difficult it is to be a living, working, creative, outside of the mainstream artist, painter, filmmaker, photographer. It's like, we're jugglers. We have to juggle a lot of shit just to keep our chin above the gutter. They think, oh, you've been doing this for so long. It's like, yeah, and I'm going to still do it because I have no other choice, because it burns in me to do it. But just because you've been around for as long as we have, does it, look, 40 years later, they're finally, maybe they're just because they're kind of catching up to me. There's nobody knocking on my door with a bag of fucking gold.
yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, you, Mark, I think a lot of us have a lot of people looking at us and counting our money for us and expecting us to be doing great.
They should just be distributing. I think that all these motherfuckers making all this money should be distributing money to us. I don't understand why these people that buy their houses in cash, that sell their paintings for $7 million or more, aren't just knocking on our door going, here, couple of Thawi. Because we would be doing it.
They don't understand art. They don't understand art.
Because look, I've seen it in music. The minute people get a certain amount of money, it's like you no longer matter because you don't have that same amount of money, or they pretend they forget what it's like to be struggling to pay your fucking rent, which is a reality when you're an individual artist who happens to be a freaking weirdo and too extreme or too weird or too productive for other people to keep up with. That's just the rule of life. That's why we juggle.
Did you watch a lot of TV growing up in the middle of nowhere, or were you like out in the woods or out in the desert? I don't know what it looked like over there.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a lot of good stuff on TV, but sure. I mean, I watched Thundercats, came home from high school and watched shitty TV.
I came home from high school.
What do you watch on TV now? There is some good things, better than most.
Yeah, there's a
movies at
lot of
this point.
good things. I mean,
I
just watched this.
Freak. but
I watched a show called Halt and Catch Fire recently that I really liked. It's like 4 seasons of,
what's it called?
Halt and Catch Fire.
Oh, okay. What's it about?
It's about the kind of the creation of the computer industry.
Oh,
Really,
the deviousness behind it all, you mean?
Yeah. And it's got punk rock threads running through it as well. The music is really good. And
so it's a prequel to Revenge of the Nerds, basically.
Exactly. It is basically Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say that I would have never expected Revenge of the Nerds to be this violent between basic tech billionaires and incels machine gunning like cafeterias. It's like, guys, come on, stop.
Yeah. Stop with the revenge.
Yeah, I know. Come on.
I mean, the
Enough
thing is,
already.
what bugs me is when people take revenge, it's always on hapless other people. It's like they don't go after the real perpetrators of what their fucking misery is. I mean, I don't mean to bring up the Menendez brothers, but at least they went after the right fucking target because, hello. So, Tim, how did the lockdown, how'd you deal with that? I mean, as a visual artist, you're like, I'm going to just do like 100 new pieces of art, or did it?
Yeah.
What did it? How did you handle it?
I had 2 gallery spaces open. Like 4 years ago, I decided to just kind of like stop trying to show with galleries and open a place in LA and just see what happens. And it's not even really a gallery; like it's a bookstore right now.
I saw that on your website. It's great. You can make an appointment online or in person. That's real. You should carry some of my books. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
You might.
I know I had one in here.
Well, there's a few more, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, so what is it called? What's this bookstore called? Where is it? Let's give it a.
It's called Face Guts, and it's just basically a room inside a building that it's got a storefront and everything. And then in the back, it's like storage, and I've got 2 storage containers full of like my weird collection and my art and things that I've made. And
pull them out one at a piece and one at a time for special. You want to see something really good? Ooh,
I do. That's exactly what I do. You want to see something weird?
You know what? I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can see it. I can't wait to go there and say, show me your weirdest thing.
Definitely. I will show you lots of weird stuff if you come here.
Ooh, cool.
What do you think of like campy, extremely graphically violent horror films?
It's never been what I gravitated to. I mean, like I mentioned Ren and Stimpy. To me, that's campy and horrifying.
Right.
It's a little bit more fun than some of the kind of like intense, nightmarish gore
that's my field. It's my. I prefer the.
I'll leave that to Lydia.
The Saw franchise is my favorite.
I'll say, I don't know why this was popping in my head, but I was trying to connect the dots. Ren and Stimpy, and then talking about
the storage shed,
our Crom, and all this stuff, and then bringing in elements of just maybe even pop culture. And that's why I was like, well, Trauma, early Peter Jackson. Do these things appeal to you? I mean, or are they just too stupid?
I mean, I like that stuff. I loved RoboCop. I really
RoboCop's different. RoboCop, that's Paul Verhoeven, and that's something way different in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction that I go in. The kind of Gaspar Noé, psychological insanity, Right.
I did make Gaspar Noé cry.
Ooh, that's nice.
Because he heard me sing a French song. It was just so moving. He cried.
Beautiful.
Enough said.
That's a feather in your cap.
Avec le temps vont tout souvent. I don't even speak French.
Do you like being mean? Do you like being mean in your art?
I think he saves that for the storage shed.
I mean, when you're talking about Paul Verhoeven, RoboCop, there's a mean side, which is the social commentary side. Is like a kind of a fuck you.
I'd like to rephrase that question. Where do you put your mean side?
There you go. That's a better question.
I'd say it's more raw than mean, if I may. I think that like that. I believe that that's where salvation is. I think that, the more raw that you can be, the more kind of like gut wrenchingly raw you can be, the more in touch with your work you are, and the better the work will be. And so
Face gut.
exactly. Face guts.
Guts.
Face your guts. It really is that, and
Yeah, let's go
You know,
back to like COVID. I mean, were you creating like a maniac? Tell us a little bit more about that. Because I mean,
So-
you have a lot of. I mean, I can only imagine the storage spaces behind that. You were just because I love that idea of crawling around inside them and maybe even being there for a few hours. But I can see it, and I feel, even though I mean, look, you can only let out into the public eye through your books or through your exhibition so much, but then there's obviously so much more.
Yeah. Well, I had the place next door as well for a while, and
Of course
and,
you did.
and I had 2 gallery spaces, and I was curating shows, and I had group shows and friends doing shows, and I had a couple of shows lined up when COVID landed, and I just all of a sudden just took it as a sign, and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore, and I'm going to see how that feels, and I'm not going back to that. It became very clear that I had a lot of work to do in just internally, things that I needed to get organized and sorted out within myself that I was kind of distracting myself from. And so I took COVID to kind of recover in a way of spending time, digging deep and going through things and finding what was causing me to feel uncomfortable. And,
That's fantastic.
Were you alone were you alone? Did you have people
No.
that you're okay?
I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old daughter and a wife.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Is it from are the daughters from the same woman?
No, two different wives.
Well, I know I want to go back to digging deep within yourself, because previous to that, I mean, and it's something that we both do. Look, you were curating shows for other people. I've curated a lot of different shows. I curate bands. I invite other people in, and it's kind of the same thing. I mean, that's just part of what we do. But at the end of it, at the bottom of it, to me, it's always straight up naked spoken word that to me is the most important thing of what I do. Okay, the music, it's easier for people to get into the music, but that's great. And I love doing the music, of course, but at the bottom of it is the spoken word, because that is the naked, raw face, the guts. So I get that. And it's very important. And I mean, I'm sure having a 3 who was like a 1-year-old when COVID started, 1.5. I mean, at least I'm sure you focused on that a lot.
Oh yeah. And the core for me, the core art form is drawing. And I started doing this thing where I use a block of graphite and sort of scrape it across the paper and make these they almost look like sculptures that happen really quickly. And I started doing that as a way to kind of warm up for painting, and it turned into completely its own thing. And it's the rawest and most immediate form of creation that I have. And so when I do it, the things that come out are more me than anything I make.
It's like automatic writing, it's automatic drawing, and that's just pure expression onto the page. That is. And do you have a discipline for painting, or you just like, okay, I feel like doing a painting now? Do you okay, I'm going to the studio from these hours, or is it more random than that? What is basically your method?
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I essentially having a 3-year-old and a wife, and having a family that I want to be around. I find time for them, and then I set strict boundaries for myself. I have a studio at home, and then I have this place where I come and work sometimes, and I have to be rigid about it.
And that's another thing people might not understand. They just think, oh yeah, all those hundreds of paintings just came out of you. All those hundreds of songs just came out of you. Well, my songs do just come out of me, but I mean, a book is something, I mean, I just find that discipline is very important. The same way that bands, I mean, I don't have to rehearse, but the bands do. But it's just an important discipline that you have to set aside and focus on that. That's how you get shit done. Do you have any idea how many paintings or pieces of art you've created in your short but illustrious life? Of course, you know.
No. So many, too many. I have this habit. So these graphite drawings that I do, they happen really fast, and people see, you know, I post videos of me making them, and it'll take like 40 seconds to draw to make a drawing.
Love it.
But what they don't see is that I probably did 40 or 50 of those drawings to get to the one that I really like, you know, and also 30, 40 years of you know, learning to get there.
Improv musicians, it's not like they've never played an instrument before. It's,
they've had to play a lot to get to that point.
Yeah.
Oh, well, also the brains of improvisational musicians. I mean, this is a scientific study. They're very different. I mean, I am speaking specifically too about like out jazz. Well, I mean, the study was done on certain brains like 60s to 70s to 1980s, and they studied the brain patterns of improvisational, basically Black musicians, and their brain just has a different set of systems that it functions under to be that open to the moment.
Well, you know, because I do a lot of that stuff, and basically it becomes to a point where like we're having a conversation now. You get comfortable enough with what your instrument is, and then you can just
it's
like
a conversation, right?
Yeah,
Tim,
unconscious. What is
it
called?
We're not thinking of every single word that we say as we say it.
Yeah.
No, it's immediate explosion of creative juice, which I love to squirt as often as possible.
Squirt the juice, Lydia.
Oh my God.
I might have to charge you a painting or two, but if you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
Now we're talking.
I want to ask you, take your pants off. Maybe you're not wearing it. I'm not wearing any.
Whoa.
I'm just in my,
you know, a shirt with no pants. And when I was a kid, you know, when there used to be more peep shows and all that
I
stuff
prefer
around,
men with pants and no shirt, knee-high boots.
This is where I'm going. You know, I'd be a young boy and I'd see these things like, you know, topless bar and stuff. And then every now and then you see a thing that said bottomless, which meant just totally nude. But as a kid, I was like, wait, they're wearing a shirt and wearing no pants? Like, I didn't understand what that meant. Anyhow.
I want to ask you, Tim, about, you have all of this work. You don't even know how much. What about having somebody help you archive your stuff, you know, which is what I eventually did after creating so much that it was just a burden for me to even have the debris of it. And so NYU purchased it and they're making a digital museum. I mean, have you thought about having maybe an intern go through and document? I mean, you've documented it already, but now maybe it has to be archived.
Yeah, that's got to happen at some point.
Can I talk? I'll talk to you about that later. I'm going to talk to you about that because I got somebody that might be able to help. I mean, it's a procedure, but I think it's very important when somebody has created for as long as for decades, that it's just not, I mean, I love the idea of being allowed into your storage sheds, but I love the idea of somebody else doing a digital museum where everything is available for people to investigate. I mean, you know, I just find that so incredible that somebody in Romania could go, what the hell was she doing in like 1981 and where? I love that. I mean, and I
do have a bit of that gene though. I mean, I definitely,
well, you've saved the stuff. Now we have to archive it.
And I really like organizing things. You know,
it's like I can tell by the shape of your fingers.
This is my organizing pose.
I understand.
But I go, you know, I have these stacks of drawings that I've made that I sort them into like my favorite ones,
piles.
and then I literally tear apart the ones that aren't there, you know.
Wow.
I was just doing this before this conversation. I had about 7 folders of papers of writing, and because I'm going to Europe and I have so many different kinds of shows, I was basically making piles of what is for what. So similar to you, I was doing exactly that before we started talking. I'm like, oh yeah, I need more paper clips.
I mean, when you decide to throw things in the garbage, you're like, I don't know. Do you give it time? Do you like, you know what, I'm gonna sit on this even though I don't like it? Because or better question, I can't believe I hated this before. Actually, this is working out.
Yeah. No, I have an A pile and a B pile. And the A pile is for things that I'm like, that's a fucking masterpiece. I'm a genius. Somebody give me some money for this.
You know what? I love when people say that about themselves, because if you don't think you're a fucking genius, why should I think you're a genius?
Exactly.
And I love that word. And also, you know what a genius is? Just knowing how to do something that most other people don't, and just doing it to the best of your ability. So welcome to the club. As little Milton once sang, welcome to the club.
I love it. Let's virtually high five over that right there.
A little cuddle.
Well, you have 3 piles. You have your A and your B, and then your outhouse pile.
The third pile is the trash can, and, things are literally torn into pieces. And I think that like the B pile are things that there's something happening in there that I need to revisit. It's not just a shitty drawing. It's there's something happening there. I don't like it, but you know, there's something. I'm gonna have to go through this pile again. A lot of those B pile things end up in the A pile, and a lot of them end up in the trash. But I have to. I mean,
suddenly I'm seeing a kaleidoscopic monster piece of sea level ripped to shred trash. This is where I have to come in. This is my forensic. I'm going to go through your garbage. I'm going to reconstruct this shit. I'm going to put my own name on it. I don't think that's going to work.
You should recorrect. If you recorrect. That'd be a thing. Reconstructing maybe not the same pieces together.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
I'm not a dumpster diver, but I am a forensic freak.
But how often do things in the A pile end up in the trash?
Almost never. I mean, I think once, you know, when I look through the A pile, it's usually like, okay, what goes with what? Because if I'm going to do a show and I need 10 pieces, I need to find 10 pieces that kind of feel like they go together. And I'll start going through the A pile and, you know.
Right, because there are some themes in your work, even though there's a certain, again, buoyancy or brightness to the stuff, there are themes that you have. There are subdivided themes, whether you announce what they are or not. There are themes in there. There are cycles, periods, phases. I mean, obviously, after decades is what happens. We go through phases. So
right.
What haven't you done that you want to do besides come over to my house and go through my trash?
I don't really know. I mean,
you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah. You know, I've always kind of like sought opportunities. I've always wanted to direct a film or write a movie, or, you know, and all these things. And I've had opportunities to, you know, to pitch TV show ideas and things like that. And it's like, I'm kind of glad that they didn't work out, because
they take up all your time.
They take up all your time, and they're a waste of time, essentially.
And then they might not happen.
I mean, you know, 2 really key things that I bumped into recently. Tracy Emin was talking to somebody about her opportunities that come up, and she said, you know, I'm a painter. That's what I have to do. And if I go make a movie or, you know, put out a book of photography or whatever, she said it's taking time away from me being able to paint. And, you know, hearing that, and then hearing Patti Smith talk about, you know, her like reading that book, Just Kids. I mean, it just, you know, caught me back to like what the raw young version of me was after, you know, was really searching for, which is just living an artist's life and getting as deep into it as you possibly can. And so I think that there's plenty of room within just a pencil and a piece of paper to do that. You know, we could talk about those infinite tendrils, because there are so many. I mean, things that we haven't even mentioned, but I think it's great that you know that, and it's great that you've transmitted that idea out to so many people. And
it's so important. It's so important. I mean, it's so important to do the show, because look, I've been interviewed enough. All right. It's important for me to present, as I always have, to other people, because I mean, where is journalism now and who the fuck cares? This is the Audio Museum. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and our special guest today was Tim Biskup. I can't wait to see you in November.
Can't wait. All right.
I'm going to have more to exchange with you privately. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Look out.
All right.
Look out.
We'll be in
Look
touch.
Sounds good.
out.